Hello, everyone, and welcome again this week to the Darren Newman Dialogues. And we're glad you're with us again for another week of great discussion and engagement. No matter where you're watching or listening to the program today, we hope you'll, as we talked about last week, engage, lean in, be a part of the conversation today, and be a part of the discussion. And we look forward to seeing what Dr. Newman has for us today as we uncover new thoughts and new direction today. If you're watching by YouTube, we just encourage you to make sure that you like the page, make sure you follow us, hit that little bell icon on the YouTube channel there so you'll get notified of any new podcasts or broadcasts that are uploaded there, and you can be a part of the next dialogue as they come. So again, welcome today, and Dr. Newman, hello, and
hey, good to see you, my friend. Yeah, it's great to be here. Yeah, it's great to be here with a friend of mine and a colleague and a former student, now a colleague, I should say. So we've got some great things today here planned, and I appreciate that introduction. I wanted to bring on some thoughts. I mean, usually the way that we do that is they might ask me, like, what am I thinking today? Well, I've got a lot of thoughts today, but I've been especially thinking about the philosophical life. And so I wanted my friend here, Tyler Grubbs, to come on with me and, or come on with us, I should say, and enjoy the conversation and the dialogue. And want to add some more thoughts to that, more insights. It's always great to hear from others. I want to encourage everybody that's listening or watching to be a part of the dialogue as well. This goes down to a long history. Before I introduce my friend here, just very briefly, this goes down to a long history of thought, and it's really the way we do things is not like a monologue, like just someone's opinion and they're always right. And that's not that's not good. I can tell you why, but two, there's just such a great lack. You don't gain anything. You don't move in any way, but you gain and you move in when you're having conversation, when you're having dialogue. It deepens your thought. I mean, friends deepen us. Uh, People that we associate with, people that we enjoy having in our lives, they deepen us. They form us. They fashion us, and that's the way we've been from day one as human beings. And the way we are in philosophy, you know, like I said several weeks ago when this all started, really, Plato had it right when he talked, when he saw it as a dialogue. I think that's phenomenal. I think it was just something that he spotted out, and it just shows the genius of his thought, or at least that insight that he had about that it's the exchange. It's in the exchange, and that's how we learn. That's how we iron, you know, sharpening iron, as we've always said. So I wanted to introduce myself too, but I wanted to introduce my friend Tyler Grubbs. Tyler, it's great to see you today, my friend.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here, and great to see everyone today.
Do you want to talk a little bit about yourself, or do you want me to maybe introduce you and then you take off? How about that?
That's fine with me. Whatever works best for you.
Okay, let me brag on you a little bit. All right, here's the way we're going to do this. So I taught a class several years ago. It was in ethics, and that's back when Tyler became a part of that course, and we had a great dialogue. Some things happened during that course that were life transformational, and we've been together as friends, not only in the classroom but outside of the classroom. We've done several projects together, and he's always been a great dialogue partner. I remember one conversation, and I might let him take off on this, and our focus upon the philosophical life. It's kind of where I'm wanting to lean with this. And let me describe that, and then I'll bring in this one story. So the philosophical life, I've always been interested in, because it talks about the life of wisdom, the life of, I call it almost a conscious, creative, contributive way of living, in which you think about how you're living. I mean, that doesn't sound astounding, but it's fascinating. I think if we would look at all of the many people who need to be encouraged to do that. I remember one conversation, and we'll come back on this philosophical life, because I want to talk about this today and explore this a bit. But I remember one conversation, and then I'll let Tyler talk on this, but I just want to share this. So we were in ancient philosophy course, and I remember that Tyler walked out to the car. I mean, we were parked in the same area, and so we were walking together, and I asked him, I said, what does philosophy, or what has philosophy done for you? And I remember this motion, and I thought it was brilliant. He said, and I'm going to paraphrase him on this. He said, and if I don't have this right, Tyler, correct me, but you said something like, my mind was on a simmer. It was sort of there, and then it went, and you went like that. I want you to take off right there. What's burning in your heart today? And I want you to come on and do a little bit more introduction of yourself, if you would like, and what has this thinking on the philosophical life, or the life of greatness, excellence, however you want to take that. Talk about that for everybody.
I appreciate the introduction and the time. And, the story you're talking about, personally, philosophy came to me at a time in my life where I was really struggling to figure out kind of what life meant, what to do, how to carry on in this world. Personally, I a little backstory about myself. I waited 8 years to return to college. I worked odd jobs, and found work as someone who worked on telephones and in call centers. It was just like, hey, it's a job, it pays the bills.
Yeah.
And found myself as a new father, and hey, that was it. That was my job now, is to provide, pay the bills. It doesn't matter how I feel about what kind of life I'm leading. I need to set an example. I need to make sure that I provide. And during that time, I found myself in a situation at the company I worked for, where I was so unhappy and so distraught that daily, and I wish I was making this up, daily, I was physically ill. So it got to a point where after 4 months or so, I went to Lexington, I went to Huntington, traveled around to these different doctors, like, I have to have some sort of stomach cancer or something. I'm dying. There's something's wrong. And in the meantime, I ended up losing that position at that job.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of weeks passed by, and I'm enrolled in classes, starting my coursework. Like I said, 8 years since I stepped into a classroom. And all of a sudden, this sickness is gone. I'm able to think clearly. I'm fine, right? I ended up having that philosophy class the very next semester. And for the first time in a really long time, because when I was in high school, like every other high schooler, I had it all figured out. I knew everything about the world, smartest person I've ever met, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And I had my plan, and this was the way it was going to work. And that plan didn't work out. And for the first time since then, I actually acknowledged, okay, I have to have a backup plan, and I have to create in my mind what works for me. So when I was introduced to the ways of ethical thought about, you yes, it's true that if you're a father and you want to be a good father, you want to take care of your children and provide, absolutely, you want to be there, right? But at the same time, what kind of example do you want to set? Do you want to be someone who is, yes, I attended every event my child was at, but I don't really remember them? Or do you want to be the person who's, every time my kid's up to bat, I'm up clapping, hey, pay attention, step up. If you're gonna go to bat, I'm rooting for you the whole time. Am I actually gonna be there? Am I gonna be more than be there? Am I gonna exist in that moment with you? Am I gonna try to be an example of the person who I expect you to find later in life? And the example of the person that I hope for you to be later in life.
Wow.
So that's what philosophy did for me, is it reopened my eyes to a way of thinking about life, instead of get up, go to work, pay bills, go home, live 5 days, wait for the weekend, hang out with some friends, do whatever you do, enjoy your 2 days a week that you have. And then one day you're dead, and hopefully you've got some stuff to leave your kids. And philosophy said, no, that's not it. You have to engage. Are you just going to believe everything you've ever been told? And so that's why, when we had that conversation, it literally, it blew my mind, because I found myself, after our first couple of classes in ethics, sitting down and watching a particular news station. And for the first time in my life ever, at 30 years old, I sat there and looked at that and went, I wonder if that's actually true. I wonder if, and then I started thinking, okay, someone gathered that information by speaking to someone else. We all have our own way of viewing the world. This person put their own spin on it, and then delivered it to someone else, who now is sharing the information on the news station, and they're taking their own way about it. And that had never clicked in my brain. And all of a sudden I started thinking, we all have to live in a way, and in a world where we have to define what our own life will mean, and what kind of life we want to lead by an example for. And that is what philosophy has done for me.
Wow, that is so powerful. I mean, I'm boiling in my mind right now. I mean, I'm hearing so much. I mean, I appreciate that has meant so much for you to receive. I mean, it's like when you're called to be a teacher, you have to be a giver. You're going to sacrifice a lot. But that is all worth the sacrifice, the work, whatever, the giving, if someone can receive that and that transforms them. Because it's like that beautiful sacrifice to, I mean, anything good, beautiful, good, true, you have to sacrifice to it, don't you? I mean, it has to be I mean, you have to pay the price. You can't have any of it without paying it forward, giving it. But when you were talking about that rescued you from a life of just simply existence, and that is so, that you were physically ill. That's what I was thinking about. Like you were actually ill. I had never heard that story, actually. I knew that you worked in the call center. I knew that. And I remember you saying something in that first class. If anybody wants to know, the way we do it is that there's several classes that Tyler has been with me on, but they all, well, anybody that's in teaching, like especially philosophy, will know this. They all kind of hang together. They're all kind of hanging on that one kind of thought process. Like there's so much more to life than just simply existing. It's almost the whole theme. I mean, across the board. I think it's a beautiful theme across a lot of ways of thinking, but especially in the way we take it, and the way I discovered it. I mean, my own story is that I was in theology, and I started reading Plato, and I started hearing things that I had studied in seminary, but Plato was saying, and I knew the date of the writing, which were so similar, but so, I don't know, it's like it gave a bit more fire to me. It's like, okay, now we're like broadening this up, and it becomes much more powerful, much more applicable, much more like it becomes a way where where my heart is yearning. I mean, my heart had faith, my heart, had a desire, but it put the strength and the power of that mind and that reason to it and made it like, boom. I mean, that's not the actual sound of it. It's like it puts it into a practicality, a charge of life where I can actually start to think about my life very consciously. Like you said something, Tyler, that I thought was brilliant, and I wanted everybody to recognize it, because when you hear something, you think, but it's when you're showing up at the little league field, and you wanted. It's like you could show up and you could applaud and go through all of that and like leave some stuff for your kids to have. But you were conscious. It's a conscience. It's a consciousness. It's a, I'm here. I'm here. I'm going to make an impact. It's like I'm thinking about this, and that's what I heard you say, and that was so well put. And I think so many people, even listening, even in our world today, are on that autopilot kind of thing. And that's the whole reason for the website, the whole reason for these podcasts, just to wake up and notice, not in a sense going to wake up and now we're going to get angry, but wake up and let's do this great work called life, and let's do it well, and let's be great people, instead of worrying all about what's the fear mongering, the ways of thinking that they just try to take you. And I say they, because like, I mean, you spotted it out so much, and I don't think people recognize it. And I'll go ahead and say this, it might be controversial, but I'll go ahead and be a little bit controversial today, because we need some controversy, I think, to wake up. I mean, something needs to shake us to wake us. You remember that song we had talked about, BG? Shake me to wake me, right? So, Tyler, when you said that you were watching a certain news program, wasn't it? You said it never, I mean, someone wrote that, and they're giving it for a reason, that they want to tell you what to think, else they wouldn't be giving it. And they give it in a certain angle. There's a certain word, that you can use. They don't say, the grass is green. They say the grass is beautifully vibrant with the green of spring as it gives freshness to life. I mean, they're trying to push you forward. I mean, and I'm not saying that's in a good sense. That's to get you to see the beauty of the green, but there's an angle. There's an angle there, and we have to be really consciously aware of that. I don't know. Is that where you were leaning in, Tyler?
Yes, absolutely. And one of the joys of my life since this, since my education and
Mm-hmm.
kind of my reawakening to try to become a more well-read, deeper thinker,
Mm-hmm.
is that now if one of my children come to me with a question, I love when I don't know the answer, because I'm not going to
Yeah.
I'm not gonna at one, I remember when I was small, it'd be, why does the moon look like that? And it'd be, oh, well, that's because God made it that way. Where, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's their understanding. That was their explanation. And I
I don't mean
appreciate
to laugh about that. That's a beautiful statement. It
Yeah,
is kind
no,
of, yeah.
They took the time to engage with me as a child and give me an answer. What I love now is when I don't know the answer, or if I do kind of know the answer, I'm like, hey, okay, well, here's one explanation for it. Here's another explanation for it.
There it is.
When you're older, it's your job to take these explanations and find what holds true to you. I'll never forget a conversation that I had with my youngest child, who asked me, where do people come from? And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So here's one explanation, right? Here's another.
Yeah.
Here's another. And I'm sure it drives them crazy, because at some point they're like, oh, Dad, oh my gosh, dude. Oh, yes, just any answer, please. Let's move
just
on.
give me one. Give me a solid answer here, man. Quit. Man, it's too much, man. Too much.
Yeah. But I'm like, no, you have to know there's all these different ways that people view the world. And it's so important, because you're going to interact with all these different people. If you're fortunate enough, like I've had the ability to travel around some of the US and meet different people with different upbringings and different viewpoints.
Mm-hmm.
And I count myself so fortunate for that, because it just, man, it makes me so happy, because I'm like, man, that's a great story. That's a great idea.
It is.
I never thought of it that way.
I love that. Don't you? Yeah. It's like, you're saying something that's really beautiful here. It's a beautiful attitude of life. If you kind of go into it like, what am I going to get today? It's like, what can I learn from you?
Yeah.
Instead of, are you going to agree? What's this? Are you going to just simply agree with me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? What can I learn from you? See, there's a whole different system. There's not a system of thought. It's a whole different attitude. It's a whole different embracing of life. I mean, you're stuck if you're like this, and as long as that fits within that purview, that's where it gets really dangerous, because you're not going to learn anything. You're not going to enjoy it, because all you're looking for is just someone to agree with you in the anger that you're holding. And if somebody ever doubts what you view, then that will just probably make you very anxious. Might make you angry, might make you afraid, might make you both. Anger. I was told this by a great friend of mine who's a counselor, and she said that anger. Wow. Anger is the bodyguard of sadness. Anger, when somebody's angry, it's the bodyguard, because they're so afraid and so sad. See, it comes out like that abrasiveness. I can tell, Tyler, you're giving much thought to that.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, and fortunately, not to be that person, but because of my exposure to the philosophical life, it's important when you're introduced to new concepts and new ideas to say, okay, does that really make sense? Does that, if it does make sense, does it fully hold true? Can I think of places where it doesn't hold true? That's a very interesting statement, because I believe we all have this idea of this perfect world in our mind, that if the world existed as the way that we believe that it would run the best, then everything would be perfect. And if that's true, it would be true for each person, right? Because each person has their own idea of how the world runs perfectly.
Right.
And I think when we get to the point where the world goes against that, and it saddens us, and it takes away some of that great coexistence that we may believe in. That's what angers us. That's the first place that I thought about. And I believe that's why we're so quick to no longer debate or have true conversations about whether or not an idea brings, holds true or rings true to a situation. But we're really quick to say, no, you're attacking me as a person now. You're not attacking this idea. Now I'm upset. Now, you
I got
call
you.
my idea dumb. You called me dumb. No, that's not how that works. So honestly, that was the first thing
that's interesting.
there.
And again, I hope I have that quote correct. I'll have to ask her again to make sure. And I don't want to be put down in record. So anybody that might be taking notes, I'd be quoting, Darren Newman said this was wrong. Don't be doing that, because we're just thinking here. We're in dialogue. I mean, that's one of the things that Socrates always taught. I don't know any. I mean, that great story of Socrates, who, when his friend goes to see the Oracle of Delphi, and he finds out that he's the wisest in all of Greece, and this bothers him to no end, because he's thinking, I don't know anything. I mean, how can I really be the wisest? How can I be the because it seemed like to him, like it does to anybody else, if I'm the wisest, then I have all the wisdom, because it just like astoundingly just messed him up. And he said, the God can't lie. I mean, he was just so taken back by that, but that sends him on the journey to go and have the conversations that he does. And he asked them, what is wisdom? He asked anybody prominent in the society, if you want to know who that was, just to put it in modern context, anybody that could be socially influential. That's politicians, business leaders, the social influencers, the people on whatever media, whatever way you could think. This is a very, very, very famous person. He walks up to them, he said, what is wisdom? What's your insight to life? What can you give me? And what he's finding out is they all have these ideas, but none of them, I think, have this wondering spirit, have this humility, or this learning, under this understanding that the power of learning and wondering, and then it dawns on him. He's the wisest because he knows that he doesn't have wisdom. He's not the person coming on, I know the answer to this, and then it dawns on him that he's the only one who knows that he does not know, and that's the reason he's the wisest. So then it's like, wow, powerful stuff.
Absolutely.
It's like,
I think Tyler's echoing something that I've said, and we've said a couple of times. I think is that there's an awakening that happens in our way of thinking. I think that's what it seemed, what it sounds like to me, that there's that dawning of a new day where I'm not going to just believe things because that's what others have said, or because I'm supposed to, because we live in a world and a culture that will rock to sleep our ability to, think for ourselves, our ability to have multiple thoughts about different things and different viewpoints of it. We've talked about Dead Poets Society and the different viewpoints, and how to look at things differently. And I think that's exactly what happened to me. I had the same situation where it just dawned on me that I don't have to accept what I've heard all of my life. I can start to think differently. And that's what philosophy teaches us, right? Not what to think, but how to think, or that we can. It releases us that we can think. So I thought that was just wonderful to hear that, the whole purpose of this particular program and Dr. Newman's heart is to help us discover the wonder of life, the wisdom of life, and the wild of life. And so you have to be intentional about that. I like that consciousness thinking that helps us to be very, very aware and intentional of what we're doing every day. And that whatever we look at, whatever we see, whatever we hear, think about it, go deeper, drill down, ask questions,
Yeah.
be interested, because that's the richness of life that we have available to us. And if we're not careful, it's Plato's cave, right? It's people
There you
chained to the
go.
wall. I didn't even know what Plato's cave was until Dr. Newman told me some months back. Have you read this? No. I read it and I realized that's our world. That's where we live. Chained to
Yeah.
the wall, watching shadows. We don't know what they mean, but we just are entrusted to think that's the truth. That's it. Just believe that. It's not until we realize there's more to this life and there's a broader way of thinking about things. So Tyler, thank you for sharing that. I thought it was great for our audience.
Yeah, that is beautiful, Tyler. I wanted to go to something, BG, that you mentioned, and that's beautiful, and it's beautiful for the dialogue here today. And that you said something, be interested. I love that. Be interested. I mean, there's a couple of things here that I'm hearing in my heart, in my mind too, about one, it's a choice. You have that choice, you have that ability, you have that power. But it's up to you to turn that on or just simply to back it off and go back and just, just they'll tell you, go back into the cave, as you said, and sit down, watch the shadows, watch what they're giving you, and just say I mean, just like
Yes.
or like that, just that command, say now, whatever. That but that decision to awaken, to ask questions, to be conscious, and consciously aware that you're asking these questions, that you're aware, you're turning it on. I mean, that is maybe that's the spiritual side of the beauty of asking questions that I've often seen, that I've often noticed in my own life. I mean, like when Tyler, when you were speaking, that you made the decision to go to the university. I mean, you were making the decision to try to get help for yourself because you were feeling so ill, but you knew that when you went into that university, especially when you came into that philosophy classroom, thank you, but that illness, the sickness, I don't know, the downwardness of the soul comes up. It has life again. You have health again. You're making, as BG brought up, I'm making this decision that this world is far bigger than what I have been given, and I will discover it. It's self-discovery. It's like, what good is this life if we're just following along the path that everybody else tells us, or just a certain number, usually very few number, even sometimes just one person will tell us that's the way, that's it. That's it. Got all the answers. There's so much more there. It's like when I was telling about reading Plato, and after I was out of seminary and I dug down deep, my faith, my intellect, and I will say this, the whole conception of God grew. It just becomes larger. Life becomes larger. Your mind becomes larger. It emboldens you. It's almost like that. There's a word that they use in that Plato uses actually in the cave when the individual that is freed stands up and turns around. It's the turning around motion. That word, periagoge, or it means turning, and what it is, it has this image or this connotation of, I was following this way of life, I was going this way, and now I'm turned and I'm going another way. Like I've turned. So a lot of people think that it's like a I can't really describe it as like I can't do anything about this. I'm just here. But they can. All you got to do is just look over there. Look. And then all of a sudden it becomes wider. But that takes that it's that conscious effort. You've got to do that. You've got to walk into that path. You've got to think. You've got to say, I'm going to try to do this. But when you take that step, and it is a courageous step, because it's very easy to live with fear. It's fear is an awful thing. Fear is a boss. Fear is a master. Fear is a master manipulator. I mean, if you take fear, as that great speech, they always quote it, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. But why? Why? Because fear is a manipulator. That probably is an astounding statement used in a context of, in American history. But even if you take that statement, you've got to broaden that even out. It's much broader than just that statement. It says, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. It sounds good, but now start to apply it. And now you're on. Because you're going to face a very powerful manipulator there. You're facing a foe in fear. And it will rock your world. It will just, but as Tyler was saying, if you can face that, it'll give you health. You'll feel liberation, and you'll be showing up. And I believe that's just so beautiful for people to receive, to be consciously aware of what you're doing, to be interested. I love that thought, PG. Thank you for that.
Sure. And I just wonder if Tyler would, if I may ask a question.
Sure.
Now that, and I just feel like a kinship with you, because I think I've had a very similar experience that you've had. And I think a good teacher and a good friend doesn't tell you what to think, but teaches you how to think. And I just wondered if you could express to others how they might find the same path and journey that you've been on. What would you encourage them to do or change, or what could make this applicable for other people that might be listening or watching today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Wow, that's big. So one of my favorite things and ways of trying to think, and the ideas of making things applicable, is what is the smallest steps that you can take, right? Of course, you can go to college. You can go pick up all these wonderful books by all these wonderful people and read until your eyes fall out, but honestly, if find someone near and dear to you, because this was what a struggle was for me personally. My parents were always right, not because that's how they taught me, or we're right and everything. Like I'm very fortunate. I've wonderful parents, 4 wonderful parents, stepmom, stepdad, and biological mother and father. Wonderful. So it wasn't that they used fear, but it was almost a respect. I was very respectful of the fact that these are the people who are trying to train me about the world. And I remember the first time I ever had a thought about their religious beliefs, their religious upbringings, where I thought, do you just believe that because your parents told you? So what I would recommend for someone who is near and dear to you, find out how they feel about any subject. Pick a thing that you and them really are on. Pick a controversial subject, or it doesn't have to be controversial, it can be whatever. How do you feel about stamps? I like stamps. You can mail them. email stuff with them. Pick a thing, have a conversation, find out how they feel about it, where they got that idea from, where they got that feeling from. And then once you're done with that conversation, when you go to get in your car, you're headed home, or the next time you're alone, think about their answers. Think about the way that they view whatever subject it is. Then view them as being completely wrong, completely incorrect. Even if you agree with everything that they have said, take their entire argument, and say, well, I wish we really didn't need stamps. I wish we sent everything through email. Try to punch holes in everything they said, not because you're wanting to discredit them but really understand what their idea is, what their belief is on whatever subject that you all have discussed. And then at the end of that, if you agree with everything, put everything back together. Hey, it turns out their information, their ideas, their concepts all fit perfectly. All that makes sense. And I completely agree with that. So to me, I would think that's the easiest. Well, I won't say easiest, because you do have to be brave to think that, especially in our area, in Appalachia, to think this has been handed down throughout since our people got here that had this last name. They have all thought this way. Has anybody ever thought that maybe this is not it? Maybe they're wrong. And again, if you look at whatever they're offering, whatever their viewpoint is, and you say, hey, actually, I believe exactly like that, all that adds up, you're able to accept an idea now that you have fully vetted in your brain, in your mind. And at the end of the day, if you go through it and you go, well, I have a question about this part. Wait a minute. This part doesn't add up. You don't have to go share it with them. You can think on that. And then if that intrigues you, go learn more about whatever question you have that's unanswered. See if you know someone who has a shared opinion about that. And, it doesn't take $60,000 in debt and going away to college. You don't have to leave your area. That is the most applicable philosophical idea that I can give.
I got three things out of that. I got that we need to create relationships, environments, and give ourselves permission to challenge everything that we hear and see.
That's great.
I think that's
fantastic. I love that. Yeah. That's so good.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say to that. That's beautiful. Thank you. I mean, take the ball, run with it, man. Tyler on the touchdown. What do I have to say to that? It's just a beautiful statement. I'm thankful for the friendship. I'm thankful that for Tyler's insight that's a great, beautiful thought. And BG, thank you for that synopsis. Say that one more time, please. I want to hear that one more time.
Sure. I think what I heard him say was that we need to create the opportunity through an environment, through relationships, and by giving ourselves permission to challenge everything that we see, hear, and know in our lives to go deeper.
Yeah. So let it go. Be consciously aware. Let the wonder flow. Let's go. It's interesting. It's a beautiful question. Even on the why, it's a beautiful conscious. I think that's been the theme I've been hearing today in the dialogue. This conscious awareness, conscious effort, consciously reaching out, consciously doing that, making that decision to get more out of this thing called life and love it. Enjoy life. I shouldn't say I hate. I strongly dislike the attitudes that are brought on by those feelings, maybe I don't know, attitudes maybe that take away the joy, that take away the beautiful wonder, the wild, the freedom of that, the wisdom of that, the knowledge. As you asked that, BG, or you were talking about that, the idea of relationships and environment and this way of reaching out, it has a lot to do with that wonder, to feel that inspiration, wisdom, knowledge, be able to ask that. I mean, feel free to ask that question. And the wild could represent the world of relationships. I mean, be related. There's something so beautiful about that gives life so much panache, so much greatness about it. And that's the reason I don't like that which takes that away, whether it be ignorance or fear, which are very closely aligned, or this very myopic, this unbelief in oneself, or this disdain for the environment that you're living around. Like I hate this statement. I often hear, I hate this area. Why? I mean, it's beautiful. It's where it's your home. Don't hate. That attitude of hate that which takes beauty away. Fight that. Don't fight what is beautiful or what it could be wonderful and good if you would just but look at it. Just open yourself up to it. It's a beautiful thing called life. And I know that sounds like a meme. It's a beautiful thing called life, Yes, it is. But it is when we're very consciously aware of that. And I thank my friend and my brother on reminding us today. And thank you. I thank Tyler for sharing that today. That's great. It's great. Absolutely. Fantastic stuff.
Absolutely. It's really good to have you here. And I hope you'll come back and be a part of the dialogue again, because
absolutely.
I think
absolutely. Anytime.
Insight. Absolutely. So again, if you're watching today, if you're listening, we would love to hear more about what you think as well. We ask you and encourage you to step into the dialogue with us. This, we hope, is an environment where it's safe to challenge things, to think about things, to ask those questions, tough questions. If you don't take control of your life, oftentimes somebody else will. So you should take ownership of your own pathway, of your own adventure, and move forward in life and really embrace the good things that we've been provided by a great creator who loves us and has given us all types of wonderful things to know and love. So, Dr. Newman, any final thoughts today that you want to share before we close out today's podcast?
Well, I'm going to borrow from my friend Tyler. Do you remember when you said you gave me some encouragement to ask one final question? Mm-hmm. Remember that, to ask a question? What would be the one question that you could that you would wish everyone to think about to get this theme of life that we've been sharing today? What would be that one question?
What kind of person do I want to be?
Wow.
Ooh,
not what kind of person do I want to be seen as?
Yes.
Because you can appear as many things.
Say that again. I'm sorry. I even missed that because I was glancing from that first one. Go ahead and give that again.
So yeah, the question would be, what kind of person do you want to be?
Yes.
What, because you can be viewed in many different arenas as many different things. You can go off to college and be seen as a scholar. You can learn how to work on motors and become, the greatest mechanic in your area. Those are all wonderful things. And if that's what you aspire to be, I wish you nothing but the best. Mm-hmm. But those are a part of who you are. Those are a part of your identity. Those are not you, who you are as an individual. Mm-hmm. So find out what kind of person you would like to be. That would be my big question to leave everyone with.
Beautiful. Couldn't said it better, my friend.
That's fantastic.
I love that. Thank you for that. What kind of person do you wish to be?
As you're discovering that and you're watching or listening, if you want to share some of those answers that come to you from that question, Tyler, thank you for a great question today and a great wrap up to the discussion and the dialogues today. We do want you to be involved. If you've got questions for us that you'd like for us to banter about, to enter into some dialogue about, we'd love to hear back from you as well. You can find us in a podcast world and also in the video YouTube world. We do hope you'll continue to follow us. Share this podcast with others. If you find or think of someone in your life who could benefit from this discussion today, share it with them, please, by all means, and let them be a part of this dialogue as well. Don't forget to, again, follow, like, and stay connected to us, comment, and return, and be back here again next time when we're right here at this spot again in the Darren Newman Dialogues. See you next time.
Thank you. Make it beautiful, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all.